This is Fun / Not Fun WoW Expansions Edition. Let's get started, shall we? Vanilla WoW. Fun! It's OG World of Warcraft coming right off the heels of Warcraft 3's epic storyline. Vanilla WoW had an amazing RPG feeling right from the beginning. It's a game that's complex, and yet it's still so simple that it doesn't require much of a tutorial to begin playing. Beautiful and fun class identities, hunters with pets, druid shapeshifting, warlock summoning demons. What a fun game to play back in 2004. Compared to other MMOs during its time, nowhere near as punishing either, but still oh so rewarding. And the best part is, nobody knew just how successful this MMO was going to be back when it was released. And man, did it take the world by storm. Burning Crusade. Fun. It's vanilla World of Warcraft, guys, but just in space. Blizzard took everything they learned from vanilla and did a major set of updates to the game. Class reworks, talent optimization. You could actually play as a balanced druid or ret paladin now and not get laughed at. The addition of blood elves to the Horde and Draenor to the Alliance, it brought with it the ability for Horde to have paladins now and Alliance to have shamans. Now, some would say this was a little bit disappointing though. It took away from faction identity. What do you guys think? Either way, awesome endgame in Burning Crusade, heroic dungeons, iconic raids like Karazhan arenas. What's not to love? Zygor. Fun. Quick shout out to this channel's sponsor. It's World of Warcraft's #1 add-on for leveling guides, achievement farming, pet, mount collecting, you name it. Check it out down in the description below. Thanks, guys. Wrath of the Lich King. Fun. It's the conclusion to Warcraft 3's signature character storyline, Arthas Menethil. Finally getting to fight against the Lich King himself. What could go wrong? It's a recipe for success. Northrend is absolutely gorgeous to quest in, probably one of the most enjoyable level up experiences of any WoW expansion. I even made a video all about this topic. Wrath also introduced WoW's first hero class, the Death Knight. Who doesn't love summoning armies of the undead? And raids, I will say, yeah, raids were pretty stupid easy at launch. In the expansion, it did bring a huge emphasis on tank and spank mechanics when it came to dungeons, removing the need for things like crowd control, but this did not take away from the fun that people had with Wrath. And lastly, that ending cinematic, man. Rest in peace, Prince of Lordaeron. Rest in peace. Cataclysm. Not fun. Considered WoW's first bad expansion during its day, Cataclysm had so much to live up to considering that Wrath of the Lich King was so beloved. It's not really a surprise that many people were disappointed, to be fair. Worgen were introduced to the game as well as goblins, both really cool races, but Alliance, they've never been able to escape the furry jokes ever since. Unfortunately, Cataclysm felt very disconnected and random from a story perspective. One second, you're miles underwater in Vashir, the next you're climbing Mount Hyjal's summit. It was kind of strange. What even was Deathwing's plan anyway? Break out a deep home, just light zones on fire randomly, then get killed by a magic talking green pickle with a golden dinner plate? I don't think anyone has a clue what the story of Cataclysm was. Mists of Pandaria. Fun. Here's the thing. Cataclysm, it wasn't too well received, and the player base, they were not in the best of moods. And when Mists of Pandaria was announced, I don't think anybody was really that hyped at first. However, surprisingly, Mists went on to become one of WoW's best expansions. Beautiful zones, immersive lore, return to this Horde versus Alliance conflict, Garrosh being a badass and doing absolutely nothing wrong. The vibe of this expansion was awesome. And talk about some iconic raids too. From Throne of Thunder to Siege of Orgrimmar itself, Blizzard really went overboard with the creativity and the amount of content in this expansion. It's a shame though that we never saw the return of scenarios. Remember those things, those small dungeon-like stories we participated in here and there? Those were kind of cool. Warlords of Draenor. Fun. Not fun. I think that everybody here would agree that Warlords, it had an awesome vibe to it as an expansion, as well as some gorgeous zones. Who doesn't love the idea, after all, of invading another planet, fighting against a tribalistic, bloodthirsty enemy, and then building your own fortress in order to combat your foes? I mean, it was cool. But the problem with Warlords was the fact that it was one of WoW's worst expansion launches, especially due to all the lag. Garrisons, they ended up being nowhere near as customizable and fun that people assumed that they would be, and the expansion suffered from a massive lack of content, only receiving one major content patch during its entire life cycle. What content we did get, however, it was good, in terms of dungeons and raids, but it's no surprise that so many people went to play on Nostalrius, this vanilla WoW private server, during this expansion's day in WoW's timeline. Legion. Fun. Warlords of Draenor certainly hurt World of Warcraft in terms of population and popularity, but Legion seemed to bring everybody back. It's a fan favorite expansion, and it's no wonder as to why once you see the sheer amount of creativity thrown into Legion. Class and spec identities being expanded upon with the introduction of artifact weapons, quest lines, and class order halls. Fan favorite characters like Illidan and Gul'dan returning to do battle against one another. This world-ending invasion theme persisting throughout the expansion, giving to this game a feeling of urgency as we fight to defend Azeroth from the Burning Legion. And also, Demon Hunters introduced to the game. Not as cool as Death Knights, in my opinion, but these guys, they're so much fun to play nonetheless. Battle for Azeroth, not fun. BFA was a series of blunders on Blizzard's part, some would say, leading to it being a very divisive expansion in the WoW player base. Either you thought this expansion was okay at best, or you just absolutely couldn't stand it. It was in BFA that hatred for Sylvanas and the emphasis that Blizzard was putting on her began to grow. Night Elves lost their home tree of Teldrassil. Borealis and Zandalar, they were introduced as these new areas, but they felt a little lacking in some ways. The expansion always just felt like it was missing something. Island expeditions were also a total disaster. People dreaded doing them. And Warfronts, despite being such an interesting idea, it just ended up being a big letdown. Some cool new allied races introduced to the game, though, in the form of Kultirans, Zandalari trolls, and Mechanomes, so there was that. Classic World of Warcraft. Fun. You thought I wasn't gonna include the re-releases of Classic WoW in this video? Despite many people doubting as to whether or not vanilla WoW would do well if it was re-released in the modern day, Classic was a huge success for Blizzard, bringing back many people to the game and making so many fall in love with the original 2004 version of WoW all over again. The only downside really was the fact that because of the sheer amount of time that had passed since 2004, Classic WoW had been min-maxed to hell, meaning that people didn't really get to experience the wonder of discovery that we got to enjoy back all those years ago. Unless, of course, you just never watched any YouTube videos or looked up any guides, in which case, you probably really enjoyed the re-release. Classic TBC, not fun. Now, it isn't that Classic TBC was not enjoyable. I even said earlier in the video that Burning Crusade was great, but compared to Vanilla's re-release as Classic, TBC just didn't seem to generate as much buzz. Many people went back to playing modern World of Warcraft, and then they proceeded to quit, and you'll see why in a second, or they went to play other MMOs like Final Fantasy during this time. Classic TBC just didn't click as much as Vanilla Classic did. At least I don't think it did. But regardless though, the Classic TBC community, it stayed strong. Many got to enjoy the delights of Burning Crusade all over again, just like we did all those years ago. And even after all this time, I gotta say, fighting Illidan atop Black Temple, it was still awesome. Shadowlands. Fun. Not fun. Even in the beta, people were concerned about this expansion, including myself. Little did we know, however, that Shadowlands would go down as WoW's absolute worst expansion. There was so much emphasis put on Sylvanas. The lore made absolutely no sense. The main villain, nobody liked him. Torghast got old super fast. You will be really hard pressed to find somebody that really enjoyed Shadowlands. I'm sure there's a few people out there, they're gonna be in the comment section of this video, but for most people, Shadowlands is the definitive worst expansion in World of Warcraft history. Classic Wrath of the Lich King. Fun. As mentioned before, Wrath of the Lich King, it was considered one of WoW's best expansion, if not the best expansion. So this was the classic experience that many people wanted to see brought back to life. Now currently at the time of this video's release, Wrath of the Lich King is still going strong, but I will say that it is a little bit too early to say if this re-release of WoW will go down as positive or negative in the player base's mindset. However, from what we've gotten so far and the fact that the community is still strong, still healthy. I think it's safe to say that Wrath of the Lich King is fun and it's being enjoyed just like it was all those years ago. Dragonflight, fun. Shadowlands may have been a complete disaster for Blizzard, but Dragonflight, at least so far, has been very enjoyable for most. Although nowhere near as epic as Wrath of the Lich King or as immersive as Legion, Dragonflight, it's filled with a ton of enjoyable activities for players to do each day upon logging in. It's my hope and many people's hope that Blizzard can continue to deliver strong results with this expansion, because it would be so cool to see retail make a massive comeback. It seems that Classic just seems to be leading the way these days when it comes to WoW, but we don't know. We don't really have the internal numbers. The one thing I'll say about Dragonflight though, evokers, man. Blizzard, you should have given us those big buff dragonkin looking guys to play instead, rather than these skinny Argonian looking fellas, but oh well. And so, out of World of Warcraft's 13 expansions, 8 were fun and 5 were not fun. Do you agree with the list? Let us know in the comment section down below.